Hi guys, Dave Vinson here. Philippine Bible Ministry. Um, we're not a nonprofit. That's a whole other. I don't know why. This just so. Who is Philippine Bible Ministry? Real quick. I just do a real quick intro in case you in case you haven't seen any of these before. You never know. God is my algorithm, and I've had people say, "Well, this popped up for some reason." Hopefully it popped up because hopefully everything's under His control. So we used to be a nonprofit ministry. We moved to the Philippines and that went away because I could have pretended I was in California. So and then but I decided no, and then further on as I prayed about it and thought about it, I decided no, and then as I more thought about the whole idea of a certified ministry through the government, then a really strong no. Um, because I don't think ministry should be just whoa, whoa, I got a little snizzle in my bizzle, whatever that means. I hate using that kind of language anyway because I don't know what it means. That old Snoop Dogg, he's not a friend, not a fan, not a big fan of his. Um, anyway, ministry. So I got rid of it because I don't think the government should have anything to do with. Just a second. I don't think the government should have anything to do with God's work. So I don't believe we should be registered, and that's a whole other issue. We'll talk about it someday if you want. So if you're curious, send me a message. I'll be happy to get back to you on that. Be happy to open that up for you. But anyway, I still call ourselves Philippine Bible Ministry, and I guess maybe it's still like a not a true statement, but I did register in San Diego County as doing business as Philippine Bible Ministry, a publisher of books. Because I publish books on Kindle on Amazon. By the way, if you want to see any of my books, you might. Notions on the Christian Life is a good one. The blue cover Kindle is one I'm reading right now. Why do you read your own books? Because I love me. I'm reading my own books because I'm actually proofing them again. I need to go back and redo them. I'm probably gonna do some stuff with my books here. I got to keep writing. So now we're still called Philippine Bar Ministry, and we are actually a real ministry, but not illegal. We're an illegal undercover. We're an undercover ministry, undercover for Jesus. So here we are in the Philippines, and it occurred to me this morning, actually yesterday. I'm redoing a video, and the title of this video. So there's the introduction, and why are we called Video for Jesus? That's another title of a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. So it occurred to me the other day that we are fools for Christ, and since I'm on a video, I call myself a video for Jesus. Okay, and that's who I am because I live my life for Him, or I want to live my life for Him. I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. How about you? So today I want to say God is still God even when the baby dies. What does this have to do with anything? Well, what it has to do with is a little epiphany the Lord gave me during a men's retreat, Calvary Chapel men's retreat years ago up in Lake Arrowhead. Is it Lake Arrowhead? They have a really nice building up there in the mountains. Organized churches have lots of cool stuff. I'm no longer a member of that church, but I still love that church. There's a lot that I love about them, and a lot of people I know are still hooked up to them, and they're all good, God fearing people. So what happened was I lost my uncle. Right, I lost my uncle, so I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my uncle's story. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about something that happened in the Amazon, if I can remember the book. I had a hard time finding the book. Let's start with the Amazon, and then we'll get back to this even when the baby dies stuff. So let's get back to the Amazon. So when I was a young Christian, I don't mean a young person. I got saved at the age of 37. But when I was young in the Lord, and when I say young, I mean first 5, 6 years. I consider that young in the Lord. Um, maybe 20 years for some people. Some people, like somebody said, I don't know who it was. They were talking about something, and they said you're only young once, but you could be. It was Senator Kennedy. You're only young once, but you can be a child. You could act as a child forever. You could be childish forever. So when I was a young Christian, and still today, but in those days, I read a lot of stuff about missionaries. God put something on my heart. When I got saved, I was radically saved, and my life changed. And my heart, if your heart hasn't changed and you call yourself a Christian and you're still the same person as you were before, then you better check yourself, brother. But my heart was changed, and I was radically changed, and I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be something. I wanted to do something for Jesus, and I started doing things because He did so much for me. You know what I'm saying? It's not about being works like we need to go do this. It's not about that because I'm feeling like I feel like I need to do it because of the love of Christ. That's why. Anyway, so I'm reading all these books about these amazing missionary stories about all kinds of different people. So I stumbled on this book called a, Missionary to the River That God Forgot. I know there's something in the title that I missed because I thought the title of it was The River That God Forgot about the Amazon. And I looked it up, and there's a book called The River That God Forgot, and it's not a Christian book. It's just a book about the horrible treatment of those people that live there, that at one time they were under the rubber plantations. And it's an amazing story too. I forget, his Nicholas Meyer has an amazing book about, I think the name of the city was Manaus or something like that. There was this beautiful city in the middle of the Amazon that had opera houses, they had marble, they had just right in the middle of the Amazon jungle, right? Built why? Because for a while that was the only place in the world that you could get rubber. And when rubber tires and whatnot took off back in the 18th century, 19th century, early maybe 19th century, these guys became millionaires, right? And they subdued all these people. All these people there, they all worked in rubber, and they were all essentially they were slaves to the rubber barons, they call it, right? And then what happened was when so that really good book by Nicholas Myers is a novel about something that happened in real life. The India Rubber Company or somebody, they hired this guy to go in and steal the rubber seeds. So a guy went in and stole the rubber seeds from this place, and they started growing rubber in all kinds of any place that was tropical. They started growing. I think West India. I don't know where they, but they started growing in other places. So it took away these guys' exclusivity, and the price of rubber went way down. And now they're no longer millionaires. And now that place, you can still go there. It's overgrown by jungle, and it's gone. You know the worldly wealth of man. That's the end of it for anybody. That's a good picture of what happens to greed and that kind of thing. So this missionary goes there. Missionary goes into the Amazon, and he's like, these people need Jesus. These poor people, they're oppressed by these cocaine barons now. The cacao is a cacao, I think it's cacao plant to make cocaine because now it's the cocaine lords that are there, and that's even worse than the rubber barons in many ways, if you know what I mean. Um, so the guy goes there and he's a missionary, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good story. I can't wait to see what the hell this God's gonna do at work. And the guy goes there, and I forgot how long he was there, a few years, and only one guy got saved, right? And then he left, and that was the end of the book. And I was my world was rocked. Sometimes my world is rocked because I expect God to do certain things. I expect God to do good things. I don't expect bad things to happen. Uh, Dr. Dobson wrote a book called "When Good Things Happen," when bad things happen to good people. What's going on here, right? So it shocked me, and especially as a young Christian, I the reason I remember the story so vividly is I can't believe God would allow that. It's like in my heart, people say, well, you can't be mad at God because when I went through some horrible trials of my own, I got very angry with God, and well, you can't be okay. Well, I'm just a normal human being. Maybe I'm glad that you put God in a perfect spot where you're never upset with him. That's wonderful for you. But God knows who I am. Apparently, He still loves me because He still touches me and uses me. So that was the end. That was the end of the story. And at the end of the story, he more or less just said, "But I still trust the Lord." So, and I can't believe that some Christian publisher actually published a book like that. And but I guess the people that published it had the same thought because they were more mature than I was, obviously, and I hadn't been through what I'm fixing to tell you, some stuff I went through. Let me tell you a story of my uncle real quick. Uncle Lester. I love my Uncle Lester. I miss him so much. Uncle Lester is only 4 years older than me. So because my mom and dad were make, I think they were 16 when she got pregnant. I think they were 16 when she got pregnant, and then they got married when they were 17, something like that. So they're very young in the process. And then my grandma, she had my uncle very late in life. He was one of those caboose kids, right? Right. So he was only 4 years older than me. So we were pretty close, my Uncle Les. We were pretty close and just growing up, but we were pretty close. And then my Uncle Les got sober. He got sober because he was addicted to drugs. He was addicted to crystal meth or whatever it was. Everybody, I could name names. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of people in my family were addicted to that drug. Actually, I think it actually killed one of them. I think it was that. I don't think it was the heroin. Drugs run deep. Called pharmacia in the Bible, by the way. That those people that want to get high and stuff like that, it's a natural. And I was in that boat for many years. I was a marijuana addict. People say there's no such thing. Okay, but I was, and other drugs too. So, but anyway, him and my brother, they both got sober. They both got sober together, and they were drywallers together. So he's a drywaller. If you don't live in the U.S., I don't know what they do in the other countries because I never lived in the other countries. But in the U.S., most of the houses are what they call stick. They pour a foundation, or maybe in the Midwest or whatever, they build it up on a platform. But they build the house at a wooden frame, and then they put plaster on the outside, and then they put drywall on the inside. It's that well, I forgot what it's called, Epsom board. That day, it's like I'm not a contract. I don't know much about this stuff, guys. I try to. A man could use his back or use his brain. The Eagles once said. I've always tried to do that. My hands are soft. They're not calloused. Anyway, so that's what my uncle did, and my brother worked with him, and it's a very hard job. And he got injured one time. I think he fell off a scaffold or something. It wasn't his fault. It was the contractor's fault because they did something, and he got injured really badly, and he couldn't work, and he was in a lot of pain, and he needed a surgery. But he was a stubborn man. It runs in my family, by the way. My grandfather on my dad's side, and my mom and my grandma on my mom's side were very stubborn people. So he was too stubborn to allow his wife, my mom, and his other sister all offered to pay for his surgery. Say you need to get the surgery then, and maybe later we can get them. No, that's not right. So he didn't do it, which is sad because he was in a lot of pain. It started affecting his emotional state, and it started to get him very very sad. And just so you know the rest of the story, a little bit of background on my family, open book as it is. My mom's dad committed suicide because he had was it TB or something? I think it was TB. In those days, there's no cure, there's no treatment, and it's a very painful death. So he went in the bedroom and shot himself in the head. And my uncle was like 6 years old or something. He walked in and saw him, the dead body. And all his life, my uncle would always, it's like the devil took that moment and put it into my uncle's mind and heart. And because whenever he would get upset about something, whenever he would get really upset about something, he went through some hard times. He was married 3 times. He went through some hard trials in his life, and he went, as everyone in my family, in your family probably, there's a lot of trials and tribulations in this life, right? And whenever he got into a bad spot, he'd always yell at people, say, "Well, I'm just gonna kill myself." So it was a thought in his mind. And so he hit that point here because he's in pain all the time. We don't know what's going on. So he goes home one night, takes a fistful of pills. I don't know what kind of pills. I think they were sleeping pills. I don't know what they were, but it should have killed him. It was enough to stop his heart and kill him. So he takes a bunch of pills, lays down in the bed, and says, "That's it. I can't handle this anymore." And I'll just tell you this: the story of what happened from his perspective. You don't have to believe the stories I tell you that people say this is what happened. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to. You can turn this video off right now, then maybe. But anyway, so here's the story he told me. He said, "Dave, I was just laying there and I was like, I was out. I was falling. I was done. And all of a sudden, he says, I wake up. I came to. I wake up and I'm flying through the air. Huh? And then I hit the floor. My wife comes. She hears the thud. She runs in and says, "What's going on?" And she's a nurse, by the way, registered nurse. She realizes that there's something wrong with him. And I don't know if he mumbled out that he tried to kill himself or something, but the ambulance comes, takes him to emergency. They pump his stomach, and they're amazed at the time he took the pills to the time that they got to him. They said, this is a miracle because none of those drugs are in his system. Straight up miracle. And it was enough to get his attention. And his wife's daughter, I don't know, she was at high school maybe. She's a young teenage girl at the time. A born again Christian, by the way. The mom wasn't, and he wasn't. She led him to the Lord. Well, God saved your life for a reason, and this is it. And then I, not realizing that she had done that, I did the same thing. You know, God saved your life for a reason. Because when he told me the story, I go, well, that's a miracle. He goes, what do you mean? I go, really? You took a bunch of pills, laid down, and then you woke up flying. I wonder how you got up and flew through the air. Now, it's possible he unconsciously got up and jumped off the bed. I mean, I guess I think it's just as possible and more probable that got through him, especially since the drugs were in his system. There's some hand of God stuff going on here. So he accepts the Lord. And because of what happened, his wife also accepts the Lord, right? So, all right. Everything's good. My uncle's going to heaven. That's what I thought, right? But unfortunately, his mental health continued to deteriorate. He got into a really bad place. He was going to church. He was reading the Bible. I was mentoring him in Christ at the time. But he would have these episodes and he would just lose it. He would be so upset. And he would go to his sister's house, not my mom, but the other one. And he would just say, oh, I hate my wife. She's so evil and wicked. And so they all thought she was evil and wicked, including my grandma. I say. And then later on, he would come to me and he would say, I don't know what's wrong with me. You think God will forgive me? So that was his thing. He kept saying, you think God will forgive me? One time I went to church with him. I went to church with him one time. He used to go to this big, I don't remember what kind, I don't know what kind. It was in Marietta. It was a big, beautiful church. And we're sitting there and we're close to the front row. And these guys are playing. He goes, and he's loud. He's upset. As the worship starts, he's getting upset. There's something wrong with this guy. And he's like, I hate this song. Would listen to them. They're lying. They don't really believe that. He's just like, and he's very loud and very kind of like he was when he was yelling about his wife. So I said, well, let's go outside. So I go outside and I try to talk to him, talk him down, And sure enough, about an hour later, 2 hours later, he's like, I'm so sorry, Dave. You think God will forgive me? You think he will forgive me for all this? You think my wife will forgive me? I don't know what's wrong with my heart. I'd say, so we start talking about. I'm trying to impart on him the grace of God and everything anything I can think of at the time, right? So it got worse. And oh, by the way, when he'd go through these episodes, he'd come and stay with me and my wife. He lived with us for a minute. He'd come and stay with us, and I was trying to build him up and help him, and along the way, right? But then one day he did it again, the suicide thing. Except this time he said, I'm not taking any chances. So they have, I think it's nitrogen or something, they spray on the wall. If they're in a hurry, like they're behind or something, and it needs to be finished so the painter can come in or something, they will just paint the wall. They'll paint, I mean, not paint the wall. They'll spray the wall. I think it's not liquid nitrogen, gaseous nitrogen or something like that. And because it's a quick dry, it dries the wall. So they're, all right, you can paint, let's go. We got to get this house done. So he takes a bag, he puts it over his head, and he puts this thing in there because it sucks the oxygen out, and he's suffocating. But it didn't kill him right away. He was in a coma for a couple days, a few days. And I was there. My wife was there, but mostly it was me and his wife were in the room the whole time. Well, 2 days. I was there the whole time, praying for him. He was in a coma. I was praying for his forgiveness and, everything. And for her, and that God would lift her up. And she became a very powerful Christian, by the way. She actually went on mission trips to Haiti, and I haven't talked to her in a long time, which is, I don't know whose fault that is, but I love that woman. I think I'll see her in heaven. And I also think he repented during that time. I do. I believe that's why God kept him here on the earth, because I believe that he wasn't dead yet. And people say, well, they can't. They're just in a coma. But a lot of people say, some people say, I say a lot of people. I don't know you research it if you want. But I've heard that sometimes when people are in those states, and when they come out of it, if they come out of it, sometimes they'll say, well, I heard you. So I believe he repented. I believe he's with the Lord. kind of funny because I had a pastor, one of the pastors at the church I was going to, not the head pastor, but one of the spirit filled pastor. That's what he did. He would do the like afterglow meetings where the Holy Spirit's supposed to be there. He told me that you can't assume, you can't think he's in heaven because it's a sin to kill yourself. And then, oddly enough, a few years later, his son committed suicide. I, be careful. I don't know about that. I'm just saying, be careful what you say, what you think, what you believe, because I wonder if you remembered my conversation with him. Because I said, well, no, I think he repented. I think that's why God kept him here, and I'm hanging on to that. Why am I hanging on to that? Because I would always come back to me when he was in a moment of clarity and say, "You think God will forgive me?" So I could just hear that. And I felt like the Lord gave me that word of knowledge, a word of wisdom. I never could figure out which one's which on those words of. Some of you Pentecostals might be able to clue me in. But here's the other thing that I'll have to tell you about the story before I move on to even when the baby dies. He also had started taking pain drugs. He would drive down to Mexico. San Diego is only right on the border, so he would drive down to Mexico, and you could buy the drugs there legally, and he would bring them back. And his wife found him under the house. So under the house, she found out a bunch of these pills, and they were from a Mexican pharmacy. So he was taking these drugs, and he was so guilty for breaking his sobriety that he wouldn't tell anyone. So he never reached out for help. He never understood the grace of God. That's what I'll say. If he understood the grace of God, he probably would. It probably would have been a different story. He didn't have time to mature. He's like the thief on the cross. He didn't really have time to grow in the Lord very much, right? So I believe God had grace for him. So why do I say God's God even when the baby dies? Around that time, they had a men's retreat in a Calvary Chapel in the mountains. I think I might have said that already. This is the second time I've done the video, so I'm not sure. I think I said that in the beginning. So we're at this retreat, a men's retreat up in the mountains, right? And one of the guys gets up and tells a testimony about this baby, this little boy, 4 years old or 3 years old. I think he was a toddler. I think it was 2 or 3, who had some kind of serious. He was going to die, or so he had some kind of brain trauma. And he tells how God miraculously healed this baby. And I remember thinking, oh, that's great for you. My uncle just died. My uncle just died, and he was a Christian. And I'm not happy. And what are you talking about? Like, and that's when I felt like the Lord put that on my heart. Well, what if that baby had died? Would they still be singing this song? Would they, And what about me? So God's still God even when the baby dies. So it's great the baby's healed. That's wonderful. We all love those stories. I had a friend who tells me, well, God, He gave us the power to heal. We have it's one of the gifts, and da 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 da. And everybody should be healed if you have enough faith, and then that's all great. But what if it doesn't happen? Is He still your Lord? What did Peter say? Jesus said, well, will you leave me too? Where can I go, Lord? When I don't understand, he didn't understand. Jesus started talking about eating my body and drinking my blood. This was before the Last Supper, but he started talking about it. And he quit doing the miracles. He wasn't feeding 5,000. He wasn't healing everybody in the room. And so everybody started leaving him. Say, what are you, we're not cannibals, What about you, Peter? Peter didn't understand. He didn't understand what was happening. But he said, you're still my Lord, right? And so for me, the reason this whole thing started was I started to do a video yesterday. I started to record a video, and it was going to be about a different topic. And all of a sudden, I felt like the Lord broke in, or I broke in my flesh and started whining. I'm in a pity party now. Nobody loves me. Nobody's taking care of me. Happens to me all the time here in the Philippines. I guess it seems like it's a common thing for people who leave, sell everything, and move to another country to try to serve Jesus. I think it's a normal thing. Because I like when I'm doing that's what it was. I started talking about how small my ministry is, my online ministry, how small my ministry is, and it hurts me sometimes. I feel upset, and I want to tell the Lord, "What are you doing? Don't you realize how many?" Because I watch my videos, I watch them so I can edit them, but I also think that the content's not too bad. This is what God's given me 30 some years plus of my life has brought me to this place. And I think it's a pretty powerful place. And I'm just amazed that more people don't agree with me. I am. I'm amazed, and because I watch other people's video and I'll go, that's kind of weak sauce, or that's just I don't know. It's like Wes Huff. Okay, he's a great scholar, but is it really? To me, it's not impactful in someone's life. It's just like the Bible's good, and it's like so interesting. It's like interesting. Anyway. And then the Lord told me not, a couple years ago. He says, "Guys, I'm in the small things, David. You're not called to that. I'll be your algorithm, you know." And so I have to hang on to that because I don't like it. You know, it's not that I. Well, maybe I do want to be famous. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe God knows I couldn't handle that. Maybe I turned into King Saul. Maybe that's why. Whatever the reason, though, after telling you that whole story, I will tell you that God's still God. God is still God, even if I only get 5 views on all my videos, and I'm still doing them because I feel led to do them. I'm not looking for an outcome. I'm just looking to obey Him. God bless you guys. Talk for now.